The base gates in Norfolk stayed open for visitors on Saturdays, not fully open, just enough. Family Day, they called it, folding chairs on the grass, kids running with paper flags, someone always burning burgers a little too long on the grill. Maya Torres wasn't family to anyone there. She stood at the edge of the crowd anyway, arms crossed, watching a group of SEAL trainees run the obstacle course like it owed them money. She wasn't supposed to be there. A friend from the VA hospital had got her a guest pass, said it might do her good to be around people who understood, even if they never said a word about it. Maya hadn't planned on staying long. Just watch, leave, go back to her apartment where the silence made more sense than crowds did. The wind picked up. She rolled her sleeves down out of habit, then stopped herself, rolled them back up. If people stared, they stared. A man came off the course last, boots caked in mud, breathing hard but steady, the kind of steady that comes from years of training your lungs not to panic. He had a face that looked carved rather than grown, jaw set, eyes doing that scan thing, sweeping the crowd without seeming to. His eyes stopped on her arm. Maya felt it before she understood it. That specific kind of attention that isn't about her face or her body, it lands somewhere else entirely. On the ink running from her wrist to her elbow, coordinates, a date, and beneath it, small, easy to miss unless you already knew what you were looking for, a trident cracked down the middle. He didn't blink, didn't smile, didn't nod at her the polite way strangers do at events like this. He just stopped walking. One of the younger sailors elbowed him, said something about the next heat starting. He didn't answer. He was already crossing the grass toward her, mud still falling off his boots in dry flakes. "Where'd you get that ink?" he said, not really a question, more like a demand wearing the shape of one. Maya's first instinct was to lie. She'd built a whole life on lying about it, or worse, just not answering. But something about the way he asked, like the answer already mattered more than he wanted it to, made the lie stick in her throat. "Does it matter?" she said instead. "That trident," he said, "cracked like that. I've seen exactly one artist do it that way, and he only inked people who earned the right to ask for it." Maya's arms tightened across her chest. Small world. Not that small. He was close now, close enough that she could see the scar along his jaw, the kind that doesn't come from training accidents. Ramirez, the tattoo guy in Coronado, he did that for guys who lost someone, guys who lost a whole team. The crowd noise seemed to fall away, the way sound does right before something breaks. "I need you to tell me where you got that," he said, quieter now, "please." Maya looked past him, at the trainees running drills, at the flags, at every ordinary Saturday thing happening around them like nothing was wrong. She thought about turning and walking straight back through the gate she'd come in through. Instead she said, "Bravo 2-1, Task Force Falcon, 2019. The man went very still, the kind of still that isn't calm, it's the body holding itself together by force. "That's not possible," he said. "I was there," Maya said. "I was the only one who came back able to walk." He said one name, just one. Quiet, almost private, like he wasn't sure he had the right to say it out loud in a place with kids running around and burgers burning on a grill somewhere behind them. Maya felt her throat close. "Yeah," she said, "that's the date on my arm, that's the day." The man, Commander Alex Reyes, though she didn't know his name yet, wouldn't know it until later that afternoon when someone finally introduced them properly, reached out like he meant to touch the tattoo and then stopped himself, hand hovering an inch above her skin. "I was his he said. "Before he transferred to your unit, I trained him. I signed off on the transfer that got him assigned to Task Force Falcon." His voice cracked slightly on the last word, like the sentence cost him something to finish. "I've spent 5 years wondering what happened to him out there. Nobody would tell me anything. Classified, they said, above my clearance, they said." Maya's eyes stung. She hadn't cried about this in over a year. She wasn't going to start now, not here, not in front of a stranger with mud on his boots and grief written plain across a face that was clearly used to hiding it. "He saved 4 of us," she said. "I was one of them." The commander closed his eyes, just for a second. When he opened them again, something in his posture had changed, like a weight he'd been carrying alone had just found a second set of hands. "Will you tell me what happened?" he asked. "All of it, however long it takes." Around them, Family Day went on exactly as it had a minute before, kids laughing, flags snapping in the wind, someone finally pulling the burgers off the grill. But for the two of them standing at the edge of the crowd, the whole world had narrowed down to one faded tattoo and one broken promise, waiting 5 years to be kept. Maya nodded once. "Sit down," she said. "It's a long story." They found a spot away from the noise, a bench near the old chapel building where nobody was setting off fireworks or grilling anything. Commander Reyes sat first. Maya stayed standing a moment longer, like sitting down would make the conversation too real too fast. "You don't have to tell me everything," he said, "whatever you can give me." She sat, folded her hands between her knees the way she did in therapy sessions she'd mostly stopped attending. "We were doing a joint op," she started. "Extraction team pulling out a group of aid workers who'd gotten stuck in the wrong valley at the wrong time. Should have been simple. Nothing out there is ever simple." Reyes didn't interrupt. He had the stillness of a man who'd sat through 100 debriefs and knew the value of silence. "Ambush came from higher ground," Maya said. "We didn't see it coming until it was already happening. Half our comms went down in the first 30 seconds. I remember thinking distinctly that 30 seconds is a stupid amount of time for a whole plan to fall apart." She stopped, looked at her hands. "Danny, that's what we called him, Danny. He was already moving before anyone gave an order, just moving, like his body had decided before his brain caught up." "That sounds like him," Reyes said quietly. "He got 3 of the aid workers behind a rock formation before the second wave hit. I was covering the fourth. She'd frozen, just stood there, hands over her ears, and I couldn't get her to move." Maya's jaw tightened. "Danny came back for her, came back for us. That's the part nobody tells you about guys like him. They don't calculate the odds, they just come back." The commander's hands, resting on his knees, had curled into loose fists. Maya noticed but didn't comment on it. "Round caught him in the side," she said. "He kept moving anyway, got her to cover, got me to cover. By the time the second team reached us, he'd lost too much blood to stabilize in the field." "He talk?" Reyes asked. His voice had gone rough. "Before." "Yeah," Maya said, "he talked." She let that sit a second, the way you let a wound sit before deciding whether to touch it. "He asked if the aid worker was okay, not about himself. Not once did he ask about himself." Maya's eyes were wet now and she made no move to hide it. "Then he said something about his said, Reyes trained me for this, tell him it worked." Reyes made a sound that wasn't quite a word. He put a hand over his mouth, elbow braced on his knee, and for a long moment he didn't say anything at all. The crowd noise from the Family Day celebration drifted over faintly, someone's kid laughing, a radio playing something with too much bass for the setting. "5 years," he finally said. "5 years. I didn't know if that transfer got him killed for nothing or if it meant something. Nobody would give me a straight answer. I used to lie awake running the math on whether I should have kept him in my unit instead of signing that paperwork." "It wasn't for nothing," Maya said. 4 of us are alive because of him. I'm alive because of him." Reyes looked at her tattoo again, like he was reading the coordinates for the first time and understanding, finally, exactly what they meant. "Is that where he—" "That's where we lost him," Maya said. "I got it done a year later, needed something permanent, needed the date to mean something other than just the worst day of my life." He nodded slowly. "Ramirez still doing ink. Still in Coronado, still won't take walk-ins for that particular design. You have to explain yourself first." A small, broken laugh escaped him, not real humor, just the release valve grief sometimes needs. "Sounds like him. Ramirez always did have standards." They sat there a while, not talking. The wind moved through the flags near the chapel, made a sound like something breathing. Maya watched a group of trainees jog past in the distance, boots hitting the ground in that unified rhythm that never quite left your bones once you'd learned it. "I looked for his family," Reyes said eventually. "After, wanted to tell them what I knew, which wasn't much. Turned out he didn't have much family left to look for. A sister somewhere in Ohio, I think. We never connected." "He mentioned a sister," Maya said. "Once, said she used to send him care packages full of terrible candy just to mess with him." Reyes's eyes crinkled slightly at that, the first real warmth Maya had seen on his face since he'd crossed the grass toward her. "That sounds exactly like something a sister would do." "I could probably find her," Maya said. "If you wanted, I've got contacts who could track her down." Reyes looked at her for a long moment, like he was recalculating something about the day, about her, about the whole shape of what he'd thought his afternoon was going to be. "I'd like that," he said. "I think it's time somebody told her what he did out there, really told her, not the sanitized version in some folder marked classified." Maya nodded. For the first time in longer than she could remember, the weight in her chest felt like it had shifted, not gone, never gone, but shared now, carried by someone else who understood exactly what it cost. "There's more," she said, "about what happened after, about the four of us who made it out, if you want to hear it." "I've got time," Reyes said. "I've had 5 years of not knowing. I can spend an afternoon knowing." Somewhere behind them, the family day festivities rolled on, laughter, grilled food, kids chasing each other across the grass, blissfully unaware that two strangers sitting near the old chapel had just found the missing piece of a 5-year-old wound. Maya took a breath, steadier than she expected, and kept talking. The base chaplain's office wasn't officially open on family day, but the door was unlocked, and Reyes walked Maya inside like he had every right to be there, which Maya supposed he did. 22 years in, a commander could walk into most rooms on this base without anyone asking questions. "Coffee's probably terrible," he said, pulling two mismatched mugs from a cabinet. "Chaplain Reeves makes it strong enough to strip paint." "I've had worse in the field," Maya said. He poured anyway, handed her a mug, and sat across a small table that had clearly hosted 100 difficult conversations before theirs. The room smelled like old coffee and older carpet, the kind of smell that made a place feel lived in rather than official. "Tell me about the others," Reyes said, "the ones who made it out with you." Maya wrapped both hands around the mug more for the warmth than the coffee itself. "Tours, that's me, obviously. Then there was Kessler, our comms guy, though comms weren't much use that day, and Chief Petty Officer Adebio, and the aide worker Dr. Lena Osai, she's the one Danny came back for." "They still serving?" "Kessler medically retired about 2 years back. Bad knee, worse nightmares. Adebio's still active, last I heard, training the new guys down at Coronado. Ironic, given everything." "And Dr. Osai?" Maya's mouth curved, not quite a smile. "Runs a clinic now. Back in the region we pulled her out of, actually. Went back 2 years later, said she owed it to the people there and to Danny to finish what she started." Reyes shook his head slowly, like the story kept expanding past what he'd braced himself for. "He saved a woman who went on to save who knows how many more people. That's the kind of math that doesn't show up in any after-action report." "No," Maya agreed, "it doesn't." They sat in the quiet a moment. Outside, muffled through the office window, family day carried on, a kid shrieking with laughter, someone's dog barking at nothing. "I need to ask you something," Reyes said, "and you don't have to answer if it's too much." Maya braced herself. "Go ahead." "Do you blame me for the transfer, for putting him in a position where—" "No," Maya said, fast enough that it surprised her. "No, if he hadn't transferred he wouldn't have been there, and if he hadn't been there none of us would have made it out. That's not blame, that's just what happened." Reyes's shoulders dropped slightly, some tension releasing that had probably been sitting there for 5 years, waiting for permission to leave. "I used to think," he said slowly, "that a good co protects his people from bad outcomes. Took me a long time to understand that sometimes the job is just preparing them well enough that when the bad outcome finds them anyway, they're ready for it." He was ready. You could see it in how he moved, nothing hesitant about him. "He wasn't hesitant about anything," Maya said, "not even dying. Near as I could tell, just focused, like there was a job to finish and he intended to finish it whatever it cost." The commander was quiet for a while, turning his mug slowly on the table without drinking from it. "I keep a folder," he finally said. "At home, every guy I've trained who didn't come home, I write down what I remember about them, not the official stuff, the real stuff, what they laughed at, what annoyed them. Danny's page has been mostly blank for 5 years because I never had anything real to put on it. Just facts, serial number, transfer date, nothing that sounded like a person." "He hated cold weather," Maya offered. "Complained about it constantly, even in places that weren't that cold. He had a joke he told before every op, always the same one, badly told, and we let him keep telling it because stopping him felt like bad luck." Reyes almost smiled. "What was the joke?" "Something about a penguin walking into a bar. It never had a punchline that made sense. I think that was the point." "That's real," Reyes said, more to himself than to her. "That's something I can write down." Maya watched him for a moment, this man who carried rank and command and 22 years of discipline, sitting in a borrowed office with a chipped coffee mug, finally getting to grieve someone properly instead of filing him away as a line in a folder. There was something almost sacred about it, she thought. something that didn't need an audience. "There's a memorial wall," she said, "at the VA hospital where I do my sessions, not official, just something the vets started themselves. Photos, names, small things people leave. I could take you there sometime, add him to it properly." "I'd like that," Ray said. "I'd like that a lot." A knock interrupted them, one of the younger sailors from earlier, poking his head in like he wasn't sure he was allowed. "Commander, they're doing the color guard demonstration in 10, wanted to know if you're presenting." Ray's glanced at Maya, some silent question in his face. "Go," she said, "duty first, some things don't change." He stood, straightened his uniform out of habit, then paused at the door. "This isn't finished," he said. "What you told me today, I want to hear the rest. I want to meet Kessler and Adebio and Dr. Osai if she's ever stateside. I want to know everything about the man I sent out there, not just the last 5 minutes of his life." "I can arrange that," Maya said. "I think they'd want to meet you too, might do all of us some good. Honestly, we don't talk about him much, feels safer that way, but maybe safer isn't the same as better." Reyes nodded, something settling in his expression, resolve, maybe, or the beginning of something that would take longer than an afternoon to finish healing. "Family Day," he said, almost to himself, glancing back at her. "Funny name for it, guess it turned out to be exactly that." Maya watched him go, uniform crisp again, shoulders squared the way men like him carried themselves even under the weight of grief. She sat a moment longer in the borrowed office, coffee gone cold in her hands, and felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Not closure, not yet. But the start of it. 3 weeks later, Maya drove up to the VA hospital parking lot earlier than her usual Thursday session, a folder tucked under her arm. Reyes was already there, leaning against a government sedan that had clearly seen better decades, wearing civilian clothes for once, jeans, a plain gray jacket, nothing that announced rank or history. "You look different out of uniform," Maya said. "Everyone says that. I keep telling them it's the same guy underneath." He nodded toward the building. "Kessler's meeting us inside. Should already be here. He's punctual to a fault. Some habits don't retire even when you do." They found Kessler in the hospital's small courtyard, sitting on a bench with his bad knee stretched out in front of him, sunglasses on despite the overcast sky. He stood when he saw them, a little unsteady, and extended a hand to raise. "Commander," he said, "heard a lot about you, none of it recent though, guess that's about to change." "Just Alex is fine," Reyes said. "I retired the formalities the day I retired the uniform for the weekend." Kessler snorted. "Maya said you wanted the real version of things, not the report version." "That's exactly what I want." They sat together at a weathered picnic table near the courtyard's single tree, the kind of spot Maya suspected had hosted 100 quiet conversations between people who understood each other without needing to explain much. Kessler pulled off his sunglasses, revealing eyes that had the particular tiredness of a man who didn't sleep well and had made peace with that. "Comms went down 30 seconds in," Kessler said, picking up where Maya had left off weeks earlier, like the story had just been waiting for the right audience to continue. "That's on me partly, equipment failure, wrong terrain, bad luck, pick your excuse. Point is, we were blind and deaf out there and Danny didn't wait for anybody to fix it. He read the situation off nothing but instinct and moved." "Maya told me some of this," Reyes said. "I want your version too. Everyone remembers different pieces." Kessler nodded slowly, like he appreciated being asked rather than just corroborating. "What people don't always mention is that he was scared. Everyone assumes guys like him don't feel it. He did. I saw it in his hands before we moved out. Small shake on the second boots hit ground. That's not the absence of fear, that's just training, winning the argument with it." Reyes leaned forward, elbows on the table, hanging on every word like a man finally being handed the missing pages of a book he'd read 100 times without them. "After Maya got Osai to cover," Kessler continued, "and Danny went back for the two of you, I was trying to raise anyone on a working frequency. Got nothing but static for what felt like an hour but was probably 90 seconds. When the second wave came, he put himself between the fire and the group. Didn't discuss it, didn't check if there was a better tactical option, just did it." "That tracks," Reyes said quietly. "That's exactly the kind of decision he'd have made in training too. Fast, decisive, occasionally reckless in a way that terrified me and also made him the best in his class." "He was the best," Kessler said, "no occasionally about it." They sat with that a moment. Somewhere inside the hospital, a door opened and closed, muffled voices drifting out and fading again. I have bad knees and worse dreams because of that day, Kessler said, quieter now. But every single one of us walked off that hillside because he decided we would. That's not something I forget, even on the nights I wish I could. Reyes reached into the folder Maya had brought and pulled out a photograph, an old one slightly creased, of a much younger Danny in dress uniform, grinning at the camera like he found the whole formality of the photo faintly ridiculous. This is from his graduation, Reyes said, sliding it across the table. I kept it because it's the only photo I have where he's not trying to look serious for the camera. Every other one he's got this expression like he's bracing for inspection. This one somebody caught him off guard. Kessler picked up the photo, studied it for a long moment. Yeah, he said, voice rough, that's him, that's exactly him. Maya watched the two men pass the photograph back and forth between them, each holding a different fragment of the same person, one who'd trained him, one who'd fought beside him, finally assembling something whole out of pieces that had been scattered for 5 years. I want to put this on the wall, Reyes said, if that's all right, alongside whatever else is there. It's more than all right, Maya said, it's exactly what that wall is for. They walked inside together, past the hospital's fluorescent-lit hallways, toward the small side room where the memorial wall had grown organically over the years. Photographs, dog tags, handwritten notes, a few medals donated by families who wanted them seen rather than boxed away. Maya found an empty space near the center at eye level, and Reyes pinned the photograph there himself, hands steady despite everything. Underneath it, Maya added a small card she'd written the night before. Danny, Task Force Falcon, 2019. He came back for us, we came back for him. Kessler stood beside them, sunglasses back on now, though Maya suspected it had less to do with the overcast sky outside and more to do with keeping something private in a room that suddenly felt very full. Adebio wants to meet you too, Maya told Reyes. Next month maybe when he's got leave. And I already reached out to Dr. Osai. She says she'd like to video call if that works. She's in the middle of clinic season, can't get away right now, but she wants you to know what he did for her. Really know it, not just from a report. Reyes nodded, still looking at the photograph, at the young man mid-laugh who'd never gotten old enough to stop finding things funny. 5 years, he said again, softer this time, less like disbelief and more like acceptance settling into its final shape. 5 years, and today's the first day it feels like I actually knew him. 4 months passed before all of them stood in the same room together, Maya, Reyes, Kessler, Adebio down from Coronado in his dress uniform because he said the occasion called for it, and Dr. Lena Osai, finally stateside for a medical conference, sitting at the end of the table like she still couldn't quite believe the seat was hers to fill. They'd rented a small room at the VFW hall near the base, nothing fancy, folding chairs, a table with sandwiches nobody touched much, a projector Kessler had fought with for 20 minutes before admitting defeat and just passing his laptop around instead. Osai spoke first in the quiet, measured voice of someone who'd spent years explaining difficult things to frighten patients. I don't remember much from that day, she admitted. Trauma does that, steals the details, keeps the shape, but I remember his hands, how steady they were when he pulled me up. I was so certain I was going to die there, and his hands were the only thing in the whole world that felt certain of anything else. He never mentioned being scared, Adebio said. Not once in all the ops we ran together before that transfer. First I heard he'd felt anything close to fear was from Kessler a few months back. Good, Reyes said, means he was better at his job than any of us gave him credit for. Fear you can hide well enough that nobody notices. That's not the absence of courage, that's the whole definition of it. Maya watched them talk. Watched the shape of a man none of them had fully known assembling itself piece by piece across the table. Kessler's memory of shaking hands before a mission, Adebio's memory of bad jokes in the mess hall, Osai's memory of steady hands pulling her toward a future she'd gone on to spend saving other people, and Reyes' memory of a young recruit who only smiled for the camera when he didn't know it was there. I want to say something, Osai said, standing slowly the way people do when a thought has finally organized itself enough to be spoken aloud. I named my clinic after him. Not directly, didn't have his last name, didn't know it back then. But there's a word in my language roughly translated that means the one who returns. That's what I named it. Every day I walk into that building I walk past his name, even if nobody else knows that's what it means. The room went quiet in the particular way rooms go quiet when something true has just been said and nobody wants to be the one to speak next and break it. Reyes cleared his throat eventually, reaching into his jacket for a small velvet box he'd been carrying all evening, waiting for the right moment. Inside was a medal, not an official one, nothing the Navy would ever authorize, just something he'd made himself, engraved with a date and 3 words: he came back. "I can't give this to him," Reyes said, "so I'm giving it to the people he came back for, figure that's the next best thing." He set it in the center of the table and nobody reached for it right away, like it belonged to all of them equally and none of them wanted to claim it first. Later, after the sandwiches had gone stale and Adebyo had told 3 more bad jokes in Danny's honor, none of them landing, all of them somehow perfect for it, Maya stepped outside into the parking lot for air. Reyes followed a minute later, hands in his jacket pockets, looking up at a sky just starting to turn orange at the edges. "Thank you," he said, "for that day at Family Day, for stopping when I asked about the tattoo instead of walking away." "I almost did walk away," Maya admitted. "Told myself it wasn't worth explaining to a stranger." "I'm glad you didn't." "Me too." They stood there a while, 2 people who'd started as strangers connected by a single faded tattoo and ended up rebuilding, piece by piece, the memory of a man neither of them could bring back but both of them refused to let disappear. "I think he'd have liked this," Maya said eventually. "All of us in one room arguing about whose memory of him was more accurate." Reyes almost laughed. He'd have hated the sandwiches though, man had strong opinions about mayonnaise. "He really did," Maya said, and for the first time in 5 years the memory made her laugh instead of ache. They walked back inside together, back to the small room full of people who'd all, in their own way, been carrying the same weight alone for far too long, and who now, finally, carried it together. Some stories don't end with the mission, some end years later. In a rented VFW hall, when the people left behind finally stop grieving in separate rooms and start grieving, and remembering and laughing in the same one.